I'm opening up in sweet surrender to the luminous love light of the one. I am opening up in sweet surrender to the luminous love light of the one. I am opening, I am opening, I'm opening, I'm opening, I'm opening up in sweet surrender to the luminous love light of the one. I'm opening up in sweet surrender to the luminous love light of the one. I am opening, I am opening, I'm opening, I am opening, I'm opening up in sweet surrender to the luminous love light of the one. I'm opening up in sweet surrender to the luminous love light of the one. I'm opening, I am opening, I'm opening, I am opening. 2, 3, 4. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This wonderful, this beautiful, this healing day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. Beautiful day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. Wonderful friends. Thank you for my friends, Spirit. Thank you for my friends. Thank you for my friends, Spirit. Thank you for my friends. My wonderful, my wonderful, my wonderful friends. My wonderful, my wonderful, my wonderful friends. Take it, friend. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. This healing, this healing, this healing day.
I like that so much I dropped my mic. I did. Ooh. Hello, welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Santa Rosa. We are so glad that you are here, and thank you for the band that gets us going in the right direction. I am Tamira Hume, a practitioner here at our center, and whether you're in the room or watching online, yes, indeed, you are welcome. Please join me in reading our mission statement. The Center for Spiritual Living is a spiritual community that promotes global transformation through personal transformation. Our purpose is to awaken humanity to its spiritual magnificence. We are motivated by a compelling global vision that inspires us to bring the gifts of compassion, integrity, and loving kindness through the world through our programs and teaching. Together, we are helping create a world that works for everyone. This year, we are studying world religions. Our focus in April is Christianity. To set the tone, here is a quote from Brian McLaren, who wrote, "The Secret Message of Jesus." Maybe that's why the message of the kingdom of God comes not as a simple formula or a list of information, not as an angry threat or ultimatum, but instead as a secret hidden in a parable, like a treasure hidden in a field, like a seed hidden in soil, like yeast hidden in dough. It is our intention in this spiritual community to discover that treasure through our 5 spiritual practices. Might you read those with me? Spiritual study, affirmative prayer, meditation, selfless service, and spiritual circulation. I would now like to extend a warm welcome to our first-time visitors. First-time visitors, would you please stand as you are able or raise your hand? Our ushers would like to bring you a flower and a welcome packet as a token of our gratitude that you have joined us today. And if you are watching online, let us know. Let us know in the chat. I know that somewhere between the music, the meditation, the prayer practices, and Reverend Russ's message today, you'll find exactly what you need for the next step of your spiritual unfoldment. You are welcome here. Now please enjoy some music before a short silent time of contemplation and then prayer.
In this moment, in this place, I remember who I am, letting fear and worry fall away from me. I open my eyes and see there is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets me free. There is only love. When I lose myself, when I feel I've lost my way, when I go inside and quiet my mind, I hear Spirit gently say, there is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets me free. There is only love. There is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets me free. There is only love.
In this moment, right now, there is only love. The love of that divine source that is ever present, ever creating, ever expressing in and throughout all of life. And it is right here, right now, in the midst of us, in the sanctuary and those online. It is in the seen and the unseen, and the known and the unknown. And I am a part of that oneness, that wholeness, that great Creator has created me to be who I am in its likeness, in its wonder, individuated. And just as this is true for me, it is true for each and every one here in this sanctuary and online. For each is an individuated expression, a creation of that great Creator. And so I accept today that our hearts are open to the message that in the midst of the chaos that may be in our lives, in the world, that deep, abiding love of the divine is ever present, infilling all of life, infilling each of us, and guiding us to be who and what we are, to be filled with its blessings, its love, and its creativity. And in this moment, I give great thanks for all that is and all that is unseen. And I bless this prayer and the church, the service, the music, our young people, and all that go into creating this service. And with a heart filled with thanksgiving and gladness and gratitude, I release this word knowing that it is already manifesting in the mind of the divine. And together we can say, and so it is. Good morning. My name is Lorena Fisher. I'm a prayer practitioner here at the center. Won't you please join me in reading today's affirmation? I rise in love, forgiveness, and renewed life, and so it is.
This one's for the undiscovered geniuses. Or is it genii I never knew, who write and paint and chisel in their bedrooms, known forever by the last name Who. I know you're out there, I know you're in there, but common knowledge doesn't know the jewels below. You never had a hit song on the airwaves. You never broke out from the local scene. You didn't paste your walls with famous faces, and you prefer the window to the TV screen. I know you're out there, I know you're in there, but common knowledge doesn't know the jewels below. I know you're out there, I know you're in there, dancing with your hopes and fears instead of chasing railroads. The beautiful don't jump before the cameras. The wisest ones hardly ever speak. Every time we're sent a perfect teacher, we miss them cause we overlook the meek. I know you're out there, I know you're in there, but common knowledge doesn't know that you stained glass from sand. This one's for the folks who know they're precious, but no more precious than the garbage man. I kiss you on your cheek, not on a poster, 'cause genius wants a lover, not a fan. I know you're out there, I know you're in there, but common knowledge doesn't know the jewels below. I know you're out there, I know you're in there, harmonizing heart and hand, making yours from sand. I know you're out there, I know you're in there, but cover stories can't uncover the true lover.
Can we give some more love to Christopher and Atreyu and Fran and Brett and Nick? Thank you for sharing that beautiful music with us. Good morning. Birmingham, Alabama was one of the most violently segregated cities in the United States. And by 1963, it had earned itself the nickname Bombingham. And you can imagine why. The city had been torn apart by over 50 bombs that were directed at black citizens. So it's no surprise that Birmingham became the location of one of the most well-known responses in the civil rights movement. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. organized nonviolent protests with the help of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and others, and their target were segregated businesses and venues. And on Good Friday of that year, Dr. King was arrested with many of his colleagues. You see, a judge had ordered an injunction against public protests. And King was isolated in solitary confinement without a mattress or access to a phone. And his wife, Coretta, who had just given birth to their fourth child, well, she contacted the White House. And President Kennedy himself called Coretta from Palm Beach and assured her that he would look into the matter immediately. And after the president's intervention, conditions changed considerably. But while Dr. King was jailed, a number of the white Birmingham clergymen who represented half a dozen different faiths wrote an open letter in the Birmingham News publication titled "A Call for Unity." In it, they agreed with the need to recognize minority rights in the United States. But they condemned the protests themselves, arguing that King and his colleagues should focus instead on finding justice through the courts. Now, it was during this confinement that Martin Luther King Jr. began writing what would become the Letter from a Birmingham Jail. And in it, he argued the importance of prioritizing moral authority and action in the face of unjust laws. It would become one of the guiding documents of the civil rights movement, contributing to a momentum that led ultimately to a 250,000 person march on Washington, that march where Dr. King gave his "I Have a Dream" speech. Now, the reason that I'm telling this story is because some people thought that Dr. King's actions at the time were destructive, like a destructive weed, while other actions were not. Even among those who supported him, some still tried to block his actions. So today, we're continuing our exploration of Christianity by learning about Jesus of Nazareth's parable of the wheat and the tares. And it goes something like this. A farmer sows seeds of wheat in a field, and during the night, while everyone is asleep, an enemy shows up and sows seeds of tares. Now, a tare is a weed that looks a lot like wheat. And upon seeing the tares sprouting along with the wheat, the farmer's helpers ask him, should we go out and pull up all of these tares? And the farmer's response is interesting. He says, no, let them grow with the wheat. If we pull them up now, we risk harming the wheat as well because the roots are intertwined. And so, it says, let them grow until the time of harvest, when it will be easy for us to distinguish between the wheat and the tares. When I reread this parable, I think of the white clergyman in Birmingham. After that fated protest, some of them saw what Dr. King and his colleagues were doing as a tare, as a weed, as something that was destructive that had to be stopped and pulled out. They wanted to restore order. But there was another way of seeing things. What if that targeted protesting was, in fact, the wheat and not a tare? If the protesting had been ripped out, the civil rights movement might not have seen the success that we know it saw in the months to come. Now, to be fair, the clergy who wrote that first letter in the Birmingham News, they were on record as wanting civil rights for minorities. But because they were too hasty, their open letter attacked the healthy growth, the wheat, when they thought they were pulling a weed. Now, maybe you've had this happen in your life where you reacted to something that seemed bad, but with time and patience, you found out that it was actually good. You know, I remember a time when I was in my 20s and I was living and working with my dad in Illinois, and I have to admit, I was not very ambitious. I didn't know what I was doing with my life, and I was finding myself very comfortable in my father's home. And after about a year of this, my dad and I get in an argument. I don't even know what it was about, to be honest. And it's in that argument that he says, Russ, you need to move out. Now, I was furious. I was fuming. I was so angry. But you know what? Looking back at this experience now, I realize that moving out was one of the best things that could have happened to me. It led me to a new career, and that new career led me to a new sense of independence and freedom and fulfillment. It sparked that ambition within me. So, my dad saw wheat where I could only see a weed. But knowing what's good, it can be a dilemma. And the parable of the wheat and the tares, it helps me with this dilemma. It helps me to process and understand the events of the world. And most importantly, it helps as a metaphor for how my consciousness can work. Here's how I see it. The field in the story is my mind, and the wheat is all of the good, helpful thoughts that I'm planting in the field of my mind. Now, the tares or the weeds are the sometimes unhelpful thoughts. Some planted by society, some planted by accident, some planted by advertising, some planted by the news. You get the idea. Maybe I was taught that I was supposed to act a specific way in the world in order for things to be okay, even though that way of being might not have reflected who I truly am. Maybe I learned that I'm supposed to treat people who look different than me in a different way. Maybe I learned things about my self-worth that held me back from being able to take risks, from really being able to live in the world. Think about it yourself. Are there weeds in your life that you've noticed? And when you notice them, what do you do when you encounter them? Well, I found a lot of relief when I discovered what we teach here at the center, the science of mind. Because I learned that I could change how I thought. And in my enthusiasm, sometimes I've been tempted to uproot any unhelpful thought the moment that I encountered it. And this brought me challenges, because often I would uproot those thoughts without really understanding where they're coming from. For example, last week I spoke about my teenage aspirations to become a writer. And when I got older and learned what I know in the science of mind, I tried to uproot those thoughts that were telling me that I would never be a good writer. But here's the thing. In so doing, in my hastiness, I ended up pulling up all my thoughts about being a writer. And so I stopped thinking about how I was never going to be a writer because I had completely stopped writing. And that also closed me down to considering different forms of writing because I was so set on writing fiction. Little did I know that I would end up in a career as a minister here in Santa Rosa with you, where I get to write something creative and spiritual and new every single week. So this is where the intertwined roots come in Jesus' parable, because they're a metaphor for how our undesirable thoughts are sometimes connected to our desirable thoughts, and how we might be throwing the baby out with the bathwater, as they say, if we react to those undesirable thoughts before we can pause, take a breath, and then open ourselves to understand them. I try to imagine those Birmingham clergymen pausing and taking a breath before reacting to Dr. King's protests in the way that they did. I wonder, would that breath have helped them to understand just how powerful those protests could become? When the roots are so intertwined, it can be difficult to tell the difference between the wheat and the weed. And so I've learned that one of the best things that I can do is to check and see if there's any good in that thought that looks like a weed. And I want to be very honest, sometimes I don't find any good. And that's okay, because not all thoughts are helpful. But often I find that I do get a grain of truth and helpfulness in a thought that on the surface might look like it's not doing me any good. Here's an example. Do you remember The Joy of Painting with Bob Ross? I loved watching that show when I was growing up, and I would spend hours on PBS with my grandma while we watched Bob Ross create these magical landscapes that came straight out of his imagination. And one of the things that I loved the most about Bob Ross's approach to painting were the times when he would make a mistake. Because instead of getting angry or frustrated, he would call that mistake a happy accident. And then he'd work to incorporate it into his painting. I'm guessing that there are happy accidents in your life that you've found a way to embrace. You know, people in our community have told me that the science of mind has taught them to look for the good first when they run into a weedy situation. And I find that the same is true for me. I like to pause and breathe and try to see if there is potential in what looks like a weed. You know, that weed could be wheat. It might be a happy accident that actually enriches what it is that I want to create. And you can do this too. Pause, breathe, look for the good. A year and a half ago or so, I started dating for the first time since I moved to Santa Rosa. And right away when I dove into this, I noticed that when a date didn't turn out the way that I wanted, well, I had thoughts. Sometimes I'd make up stories about the person that I went on a date with. Sometimes I would make up stories about me. Sometimes I wanted to quit dating altogether because it looked like it was always going to be a weedy situation. I see you might have had a similar experience. But when I dug a little bit deeper by asking myself, how are these thoughts trying to help me, I discovered that what I want most in a relationship is to feel wanted, to feel safe. Those dating experiences in their different ways triggered this desire in me. And what had been seemingly unhelpful thoughts I would have after them, I found out that they're really trying to protect me. They're trying to protect me from situations where I might feel rejected or feel unsafe. And so that helped me to soften my approach. And I started going on dates more intentionally and more open-heartedly because I had discovered some foundational needs that I have for any relationship. I learned that I just need to be a little more patient. Which brings me to another helpful idea we get from this parable: patience. That farmer, after learning about the tares, urges patience to his helpers. And that patience is an invitation to respond rather than react. Now, what does it mean to respond rather than react when we notice something that maybe doesn't feel like it's good for us? Well, I like to think about movie theaters. Because if I'm in a movie theater and somebody yells, "Fire!" what do you think's going to happen? Now, if I react, I might jump up out of my seat, run every which way, bump into the people next to me, maybe bowl people over. I might hurt myself. I might hurt other people. And all of this without even checking to see if there is a fire in the first place. Here's what it might look like to respond. First, I note in my mind, oh, somebody just yelled fire. Isn't that interesting? And so I look around. Do I see evidence of fire? Do I see smoke? Do I see a fire? Is the fire alarm going off? Is there an employee of the movie theater who's saying, hey, let's exit this way in an orderly fashion? And if I do see evidence, I'm not done. I then consider, okay, where am I sitting in the theater? Where are the exits at? I notice if there are people between me and the exits. Are there people who maybe need some help to get out? Can I help them? Even though all of these extra steps might make it feel like it takes more time to exit and get out and get away from the fire, it turns out that this is actually the safest and the healthiest way for everyone to find their way out of that crisis. And it requires patience. Because I notice that in frightening situations like these, there are parts of my mind that just want to run or fight or hide. And if I let them, I might do more harm than if I just take a moment to pause, breathe, and discern what's going on before I take action. I wonder, is there a time in your life where patience in the midst of crisis helped you to better respond? Now, cultivating this kind of patience, it does take time. It takes practice. And our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, he often encourages us to wait in quiet expectation after we speak our spiritual mind treatment, our affirmative prayer, like you heard from Lorena this morning. And he does this because he knew the challenges that come with hasty thinking, that they can sabotage the good work we do in our consciousness with a spiritual mind treatment. And so instead, he suggested that our intentions that we're setting are more likely to come to fruition when we can be patient and trust the creative divinity that's behind them. Now, that can be challenging, and if you're not there yet, that's okay, because we're all in this together. We have spiritual support that we can take advantage of to help us find our way into that feeling of patience. We have after-service prayer. Today we have our grief and loss group that you can go up to the Ernest Holmes Lending Library and the door right outside of it if you're looking for grief and loss support. We have a number of ways that you can help to cultivate that patience within. And for me, I've noticed that in my own life and journey that the more that I can take time for prayer and for meditation, the more I find that I've built a foundation of patience within my mind that makes it easier to become clear about what's going on. And once I know that, that's when I can choose how I want to respond. Emphasis on that word, choose. Doesn't mean that I don't still have reactions. I think that's just part of being human. Sometimes things in the world just push our buttons in exactly the right way. But I do notice that my reactions happen far less frequently than they did before I began this journey, before I found patience. Did you know that when training protesters during the civil rights movement, Dr. King and his fellow nonviolence leaders, they were vigilant about making sure that any protesters that looked like they were going to react when they went out to the protest, they would send them home. They would say, "You're not ready to be in this protest. Go home." They knew the power of patience. But Dr. King, he also knew that patience had its limits when it comes to finding what is morally right and just. And here's where another part of our parable offers us some grace with that. You see, those weeds that got planted, they got planted while everyone was asleep. That doesn't mean that the farmer and his helpers were careless. They were just human. We all fall asleep sometimes, especially when things are going well. So this part of the story, it's an invitation for us to gently look at those places in life where, well, maybe where I've stopped paying attention, maybe where I've allowed things to become normal that should not have become normal. And so this was something that I think that Dr. King and his fellow civil rights leaders knew. They knew the importance of staying awake to what's going on. Dr. King writes about this in that letter from a Birmingham jail. He says, in any nonviolent campaign, there are 4 steps, 4 basic steps. collection of the facts to determine whether injustices exist. Negotiation, self-purification, and direct action. Now notice that the very first step in this is patient collection of the facts to determine whether injustices exist. The patience to become awake to what is true. Imagine how in your life, when you're faced with a challenging situation, you can take a pause, breathe, and patiently collect the facts. Now, the next step is negotiation, which I see as communication and collaboration. It's the recognition that the people that we're sometimes in conflict with, they share roots with us. Their desire for order and our desire for justice can grow from the same soil of us both wanting a good community. It's a desire to work towards the best outcome for all. And then we have self-purification, which Dr. King describes by saying, mindful of the difficulties involved, we decided to undertake a process of self-purification. We began a series of workshops on nonviolence, and we repeatedly asked ourselves, are you able to accept blows without retaliating? Are you able to endure the ordeal of jail? This passage tells me that if I have become clear on where I see injustice, and if I have tried to negotiate, but those negotiations fail, well, the next step isn't for me to go to war. The next step is for me to dive deeper into my own consciousness, my own spiritual practice, to ensure that no matter what the world might throw at me when I do take action, I can respond rather than react. It's that way that I avoid sabotaging myself and sabotaging others. And it's only after that self-purification that I'm able to take direct action. In his letter from a Birmingham jail, Dr. King laid out a framework that modeled what it looks like to prepare with patience so that when the time comes to act, we can respond with integrity. And I find this inspiring. Because when I see what's going on in the world these days, it's very easy for my mind to want to react. I suspect you've had a similar experience. Oftentimes, my mind will scream at me saying, why aren't you doing anything? Do something. But I'm glad that I've learned that when I can pause, take a breath, look to see what's true while remembering that sometimes the roots of the wheat and the tares are intertwined, then I can choose how I want to respond. Then I can respond from a place of integrity, a place of wholeness, a recognition of our mutual oneness. My encouragement for you as you encounter the injustices of the world is this: pause, breathe, and proceed with patience. Take the time to discover what's true, learn the facts, and then cultivate more patience. Not the kind of patience that's really avoidance in disguise that leads to inaction, the kind that invites cultivating the kind of spiritual truth that informs and enlivens every action that you take. It's then that I know you will be able to enjoy the fruits of the harvest while also discarding the tares. And so let us take that into prayer. There is only one life, one infinite creative power, one divine source of all of existence. This infinite presence creates through the self-givingness of its unconditional love for all of creation. It is everywhere, whether it is seen or unseen. And so I know that it is here now, living its life as and through me, living its life as and through each and every one of us. We are that divinity in human form. And so I know that unconditional love resides within us, that clarity of mind resides within us. That divine knowledge of wholeness and oneness and peace resides within us. And I know that these qualities, they are unlimited. There is nothing that could ever diminish them. Because if spirit is infinite, so too must all aspects of spirit be infinite. And so knowing that each and every one of us is truly at the center of that divine existence, I claim and I declare for us an opening to that wisdom and that patience within us that allows us to pause, to breathe, and then to look at the facts and choose how we will proceed. I invite us all to do that now, to pause and to take a breath and to open our hearts and our minds to what is true for us, to what is true in the world, and to know how best to step forth into anything that feels like a challenge, anything that feels like an injustice, anything that feels like it is the opposite of a world that works for everyone. And I know that as each of us does this in our own unique way, we all step closer to that world that works for everyone. And that is truly a good thing. And it's wonderful for me to witness the opening to that inner courage, that inner confidence, that inner clarity that I know leads to the kind of changes that we would like to see in the world. I know that as each and every one of us walks into the world as an example of peace, an example of clarity, an example of patience, that these qualities have nothing they can do other than spread and grow and contribute toward this divine world, to contribute toward that peace, that wholeness, and that love that I know each of us desires within our heart. And so knowing this, knowing the opening to this love and this wholeness and this peace within us, this patience within us, that fills me with gratitude. I allow this gratitude to usher this word on its way into that divine law of mind that has already said, yes, my beloveds, yes. I let it be, and I invite us all to seal this word by saying, and so it is. I invite us all to take a nice deep breath, breathing in, let out a big sigh. we use our breath to help us to transition to our practice of supporting our center financially. And we are very grateful for all of the gifts that you share. They go towards so many things in this community, whether it's our Sunday services, our Wednesday services, our youth and family program. All of that helps us to be here, to be of support to you. So please do take advantage of those supports as well. Now, if you choose to give financially today, there's a number of ways you can. You can go on our website to give online. You can also use text to give. I use that. It's very fast and easy. You can see me after service if you'd like to see how to set that up. And today we will pass the baskets. So I invite our ushers to stand and to hold the sacred space, and I invite you to hold your gift close to your heart as a symbol of your connection to this community, and repeat after me. I bless my gift. I send it forth to heal and prosper. It does incredible work in the world. And so it is. Ushers, please receive the gift.
Pretty nice. Thank you. Awesome is a very good word. Spiritual study is one of our core practices, and here are some opportunities to practice. Next Sunday, Dr. Edward presents a workshop called Opening Yourself to Receive, to explore how to shift your perspective towards a more balanced approach to living. The workshop focuses on nurturing receptive states. and identifying what you want to receive more of, and more importantly, what it means to cultivate gratitude. The workshop is on Sunday, April 26th, and it's 1 to 3 p.m. Next, if you would like to explore Pema Chodron's book, Start Where You Are, through the lens of a science of mind look, then you'll enjoy our 4-week class with the same name, Start Where You Are. It takes a look at habits of self-criticism that you might have, and along the way, you'll work with some concepts like unconditional friendliness towards oneself. Now, that's a really wonderful concept. Meditation and the science of mind teaching that wholeness is not something we build, but rather something we already are. Class starts on Thursday, May 7th, and is taught by practitioner Jan Svoboda. You can register for these classes on our website. We have a new elder circle, and it's led by Tomas, and it's for folks over 60 who may be wondering what comes next. This starts on April 19th. The Elders Circle meets once a month in a small group of 8 to 12 people. You reflect on your life, deepen your sense of meaning, and connect with others that are navigating this very same stage of life. You can register for that on the website as well. There's a lot of ways you can connect with new and existing friends at the center during the week. Wednesday evenings is a great one. 7 p.m. service here in the social hall. Join for a service of inspiration from the science of mind, as well as spiritual practice, which we'll all do together. This Wednesday, Reverend Russ Legear will be talking about human nature from a science of mind perspective. And another beautiful way to connect with one another is nurturing our community. Today is the last day to bid on these small gatherings that are centered around food and then something interesting. Each event is unique and takes place at members' homes. Look for the people with the chef's hats and find out more information about this food-forward community fundraiser. Now, before I wish you a wonderful week, something important is coming up. This year will be our 3rd all-community service. That's where we have one service on a Sunday at 10 a.m. with refreshments and good music, and it's a big full house because, we do it once a year, and this is our 3rd annual. So that last Sunday in May, May 31st, please mark your calendars. Not at 9, not at 11, but at 10. What time? 10. Thank you for being part of our community. Have a great week. And I look forward to seeing you next week when Dr. Edwards speaks about the parable of the mustard seed. Thank you.
Thank you to Myra for sharing what's going on in our community. Now, I've got to take a moment here and be really real with you. Some of you have been outbid. So definitely make sure that you go over to those Nurturing Our Community tables and look for those highlighted lines, because if you're the highlighted line, you've been outbid. So make sure that you bid high, because today's your last day. All right, it is time for us to bring our service to a close. But before we do, please do take advantage of our after-service prayer. If you're here in person, you can go over to Lorena in the corner there. She'll guide you to one of our prayer practitioners who would love to pray about whatever it is that your heart desires. And if you're watching online, there's a link that you can follow that will take you to free confidential Zoom prayer. Also today, right after the service, as I mentioned, you can go up to the 2nd floor by the Ernest Holmes Lending Library and take advantage of our grief and loss support group. So please do take advantage of that as well. All right, I invite us all to stand as we're able and repeat after me. Something wonderful is happening through me right now. It is this thing called life. Life is in my mind. Life is in my body. Life is in my affairs. I think it, I feel it, and I accept it. Just the way that it is, and just the way that it is not. Thank you, life. Please know with me that you are never alone, that Spirit is right where you are, that you have only to look within at any moment to know that you're guided, sustained, and inspired by a presence that expresses itself as you in this world. In deepest gratitude, let us live our lives accordingly, so that in everything that we do and say and think, we honor this presence within. And so it is. Thank you so much for being here. Let's close in song.
I believe